Volodymyr Zelensky is tanking peace talks with Russia by claiming he will never acknowledge Russian control of Crimea and won't have peace until Ukraine takes it back. This is clearly the position of someone who does not want to end this war. Doesn't Zelensky realize that he's losing? How can Zelensky credibly make a demand like this when Russia is in complete control of this war? Because Zelensky knows that this is not attainable. This is something that you say if you never want this conflict to end. Because most importantly, the people of Crimea does not want to be part of Ukraine. Crimea is overwhelmingly Russian, and 95% of Crimeans in 2014 voted to join Russia. So Zelensky is proposing never-ending war and conflict against Russia, sacrificing an entire generation of Ukrainian men in order to get Crimea, a country that doesn't even want his ass. Zelensky wants to join NATO, invoke Article 5, and plunge the world into World War III so Ukraine can have control of Crimea? Now do you guys see why Donald Trump and J.D. Vance had to slap this idiot around in the White House? The majority of Ukrainians want a peace deal. Meanwhile, Zelensky is doing everything he can to prevent that from happening. I don't know what the EU and the NATO military-industrial complex promised Zelensky, but he's going to go down as an evil tyrant who completely destroyed his country and tried to start World War III, acting as a pawn of Western neocons.
Welcome back. Thank you, Nick. We are back. This is going to be our once every 2 week show extravaganza for all of you guys. Thank you all for joining in. We are at over 1,000 viewers already. Thank you guys for streaming across all platforms, dual streaming with RBN. And if I'm distracted at all, it's because the puppy is with me and not sleeping. So hi, Nick. How are you?
What's poppin', Sarah? This is great. This is fantastic. What's poppin', my friends? Welcome
How are you?
To the RBN DDGeopolitics dual stream. We're doing this now, I believe, once every 2 weeks.
According to Zoya. Zoya's the boss.
You know, we may break that rule every once in a while. They had to add an extra show. It's always great to have these rant sessions. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Well, you started off with Ukraine, and interestingly enough, we had a great. Not sure that it's uploaded, but we had a large strikes last night on Kiev, the largest that we've had in over a year, and this is in response to the recent talks. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts because you're the one who did the video on them wanting World War III, and we also had some weird sort of rumblings that Trump had reached a deal from the crazy the crazy accounts on Twitter, but we had a response from Russia to bomb the hell out of Ukraine. So I kind of wanted to know your thoughts on what's going on in Ukraine, the lack of again, Zelensky had a meeting with or Yermak had a meeting with Witkoff. No one else showed up. Rubio did not show up. It's not really looking good. So what are your thoughts?
So you know that Europe and neocons like Susan Rice, they're in Zelensky's ear telling him to reject Trump peace offer. And they're the one who telling Zelensky to bring up Crimea. I have something, if you want to put this on the screen, I'm gonna show you guys what the EU has said. And this is another example how the EU and the rumor is people like Susan Rice and many Biden administration previous officials are in Zelensky's ear to do everything they can to take a peace deal. So this is why I wanted to cover the Crimea, because this is a big deal that Zelensky is saying absolutely not. Crimea is off the table. And it's weird because Ukraine is fighting a defensive war, they will have us believe. So if you're fighting a defensive war and you are the quote-unquote victim, why does your demand impose you taking territory from Russia? Because this is what Russia, they already took Crimea. And this is because the Crimea army and the Crimea people want to be part of Russia. I'm going to show this video, and Sarah, I want to get you in here as well, because the way the liberal media have been covering this, you have Democrats that are absolutely freaking out over Donald Trump saying, Of course we can't negotiate over Crimea. But the reason why Zelensky and the EU saying Crimea is off the table for them is because their plan is to start World War III. And people need to start saying it. What was Zelensky's victory plan? His victory plan involved him joining NATO. In fact, Zelensky, his camp, and many of the Ukraine flag supporters, their biggest criticism of the Biden administration and the EU right now is that they won't admit Ukraine into NATO. In fact, you'll see Ryan McFall and you will see MSNBC, CNN, and all these talking heads. They're furious that NATO is off the table. They bring it up all the time. Why is it important for them to have Ukraine in NATO? Zelensky spelled it out himself. The only way that Ukraine and Zelensky can see a way for them to quote unquote win this war is for Ukraine to join NATO, and then they invoke Article 5. What does that mean? That means we have the entirety of Europe and the United States waging war with Russia. We will, of course, probably bring China in. There are a new security arrangement between Iran and Russia. So that will lead to World War III. That is why Zelensky is asking for this. So, Sarah, I want to get you in here as well, but let me play this video because this shows how absurd their position is. Because every time, and this is why they don't do it that often, you have MSNBC or any NBC, Fox News, whenever Western media actually go into Crimea, they tell them straight off to their face that they don't want anything to do with Ukraine. They are Russian.
Is Crimea Russian or Ukrainian?
Russian,
Crimea
конечно.
is Russian.
Да.
Of course Russian. 73-year-old Praxovia tells me Zelensky will not get Crimea back because we have our commander-in-chief, Putin.
Глава команды, Putin.
Every one of them told us that they are Russian and that if President Zelensky thinks Ukrainian forces can come here, they will fight them. President Zelensky has said that the Ukraine war started here and it will end here, but no one was able to tell us how it will end and how much more blood will be spilt.
And Sarah, I want you to react to this because remember, look at the headline I put up before. What are they doing? The EU will never recognize Crimea as Russian? Sarah, what's your take? Anything you want to add?
I mean, they can not recognize in one hand and cry in the other and see which one fills up first. Because I said this also to Area that when Trump was toying with the idea, I said, why would any of this make a difference to Russia? They don't care if you recognize Crimea or not. Go ahead and recognize it. Go ahead and not recognize it. I mean, if this is what we're holding on to leverage power over Russia, this is really sad. I actually got into an argument with a Ukrainian the other night who was yelling at me because I guess some southern towns in Russia are overrun by cockroaches. And I was like, what's going on in Crimea? And they just like lost their mind. So
your spaces are crazy, man.
They are. If you guys, they lost their, that's why I said the great Ukrainian cockroach counteroffensive has begun because these are the victories they're celebrating. Like that's how petty this war is getting. We're talking about Crimea, which, yeah, the war kind of did start in Crimea in 2014 in a way. And so don't message me when I'm talking and then I get distracted. Anyway, Aria's the producer. But yeah, so then I was making fun of them. But if these are the small victories and the small pieces of leverage that we have to hold, this is really bad. Oh, we're going to recognize Crimea, Russia. Russia's probably like, okay, like you're a little late to the party. So it's kind of silly and petty, I think.
I was hate watching way too many of these segments because it was funny watching the tears like from the liberal corporate media. Maybe I should find one, but they was crying. They are rallying behind Crimea as this giant deal, and they blaming Trump for it, even though this happened under Obama. But this is the reality they would never tell you. I watched maybe 4 segments on this over the last 24 hours from corporate media, and they never explained why Crimea is part of Russia. What's poppin', Danny?
Danny, hi.
Look, this is the reality. On March 24th, the Ukrainian government ordered the full withdrawal of all its armed forces from Crimea. Approximately 50% of the Ukrainian soldiers in Crimea had defected to the Russian military. They would never tell you this. In Western media, I watch so many of these stories. You can pull up all these articles. They would always bring up how, oh my God, I can't believe Obama lost Crimea. That's what Donald Trump said. Meanwhile, the reality is there's not a goddamn Crimean that wants anything to do with Ukraine. In fact, there was referendums. The referendums that people in the West claim is fake, even though polling constantly replicate the results of that, where 95% of people in Crimea wanted to join Russia. So what the EU and what Ukraine and Zelensky is proposing is to forcibly take Crimea from Russia and force the people of Crimea to live under a fascist government where you are not allowed to collectively bargain. Sorry, that's my phone. You're not allowed to collectively bargain in Ukraine. They banned socialist parties. So what the West want to do, they want to force Crimea into a fascist hellhole. Do you know how evil that is? Sarah, anything you want to add?
I mean, you bring up good points that people kind of need to be reminded of. Plus, Crimea, I think this is the fourth. I mean, if we say this war is over Crimea, this is the fourth war in history over Crimea, like in modern history, I guess in post-Renaissance history. It's probably the fourth war fought over Crimea. This is a very important place for Russia. It always has been. And to think like that you're even going to be able to approach it. You said that you can't get any good information. While this isn't a very informative documentary, Roses Have Thorns, the episode about Crimea, the whole entire documentary series is on YouTube for free. It's called Roses Have Thorns. I think there's 12 or 14 parts, but the Crimean one shows really what was going on in Crimea as these sort of Ukrainian fascists were approaching on tour buses. And Putin had no idea what was going on. He really didn't have any clue. He didn't even have a clue that the referendum was taking place until it took place and after the aftermath. And he was like, okay. And so they reacted to that. But I mean, Crimea was always going to be a part of Russia. He just wasn't very much ready to do it at that time. But yeah, I think that, and I wanted to ask you your opinion. I'm thinking now that they keep on saying like NATO is completely off the table. Like you're off, that's off the table for the time being. They're like, what can we kind of hold on to that's tangible? And maybe that's Crimea. Because if NATO's gone, you're not going to get into NATO anytime soon. What are you going to try to negotiate with? Your whole war is kind of hinged on the joining of NATO. And if they've taken that off the table, you need another reason to fight this. So maybe he's just kind of pivoting more stress towards the Crimean issue. And notice he never talks about the Donbass. Like once in a while, he'll mention like, we want to get the Donbass back. They hate those people. They want Crimea back because they want their Turkish sort of Black Sea vacation spot. That's why they want Crimea, because it's where all the oligarchs hang out. And there was a good Ukrainian mafia in Crimea as well.
Yeah, can we put my share screen back up? I want to show you guys. This is from the BBC. I can show you guys these crazy headlines all day, where they're drawing the red line at Crimea. And I'm gonna say this just to answer your question. I would be shocked if Trump, and I've been saying this for like 2 years now, Sarah. And I'm down to be wrong, and I will be happy to be wrong about this. I predicted that Trump is going to fail in achieving peace, at least as the West define it in Ukraine. And Trump and his team have been delusional in a lot of different ways, where they say, yeah, we're going to get concession for Ukraine here. We're going to ask Russia to give up land here. We're going to maybe float the idea of having European security forces. No, we don't want to have anything to do with it. But if France and the UK want to go in the UK, maybe we should consider that. And as Trump is saying this stuff, Russia is looking at them like, are you guys out of your goddamn mind? Why should we ever concede to any of this? Do you understand the situation that you're in, sir? I know it's not. In fact, it's your fault because you started this conflict. I was about to misspeak, but it is Trump's fault too. I don't want to miss, because Trump got started. He armed Ukrainian rebels. He armed the Ukrainian government. He's the one that laid the foundation for this conflict. So Russia's like, you guys made your fucking bed. It's not my job to bail you out and your government out. And that's why Trump has been desperate to place blame on everyone else. Now, I'm glad that Trump wanted to see peace, but you guys understand that Donald Trump played a very big part in the lead up to this conflict. So because of the role that Donald Trump has played, why would Russia let them off? Imagine if Russia gave in to some of the demands of Trump. Do you understand how much of a giant L that would be for Putin? I'm a peace lover. I'm very squeamish. You know what I mean? Even though Russia's dominated the battlefield and they seem like they're going to accomplish their military objectives, they still lost a lot of people. And I think that's a very huge cost. Do you know how much of an L it will be for Putin, for him to spend the resources that he spent, for him to lose the good men that he's lost in this conflict, which I believe that all deaths in war is a tragedy, to negotiate with Trump and allow EU forces into Ukraine, which they was against in the first place. So to allow what the EU is asking for, which is a NATO membership, Zelensky's asking for NATO membership. Of course, that's why you see the attacks now. And Sarah, I know you wanted to bring this up some more. So I would love for you to talk about the attacks that we've seen today. But that's the reason why we're seeing that. Because Putin and Russia has zero reason to negotiate with the West unless the West is willing to accept a complete Russian victory, because that is what Russia fought and they bled for. Whether you agree with it or not. But go ahead, Sarah. I know you
100% agree. And especially how you start off with, does anybody see what's going on? Because do they not know that Russia's almost to the river? And so once they get to the river, like that's pretty much complete Russian military victory anyway. So it's like, why are we discussing Crimea? Why would Putin take these people seriously? Like, this is getting silly to this point. But yes, the attacks on Ukraine, we mentioned that in the beginning. They were huge, huge. We don't know what hit what, if it was air defense or what. There are at least a dozen people that have passed, which is obviously a tragedy, a dozen civilians, and about, I think, over 50 or 90 injuries, but quite a few injuries. But for an attack that massive to result in that few tragedies, that's actually amazing. Here, we actually do have a video. It's only 20 seconds, so let's see. Very large sortie last night. And we also have Trump's response, which is big mad. I'm not happy with the Russian strikes on Kiev. First of all, it's Kiev, not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. Now, keep in mind, this was today, and last night, Douglas McGregor, among other accounts, I'll call you out, I don't care, his account, whether or not he's running it, I don't know, said Trump reached a deal. That was in the middle of my afternoon yesterday. So I was like, and then all of a sudden the strike started, and I was like, what was the deal? So then this morning, and I kind of want to touch on those Twitter accounts later, but yeah, we have no deal. Russia showed again last night. People in the West don't understand how to read people in the East's actions or what they actually say. If he's bombing, as rumors are coming out that there's a deal, and he is doing the largest strike he's done in a year on the Capitol, he's telling you, F your deal. There's no deal. This is the deal. So that's the message that's being sent. Very much Russia's in the driver's seat when it comes to all cylinders, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's because that's Putin sending a message that we don't have to, like, the negotiations that you guys are doing is not worth our time.
Yeah.
And you guys are on the back foot right now. We have no reason to accept the terms. And I've been watching the coverage. I've been seeing what liberals been saying about the new strikes. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was like 2 people who died in these strikes or whatever. Essentially rookie numbers compared to what Israel's putting up.
That's what I said. I read the New York Times article and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, you got to do your article. And the way that they talked about the tragedy, I was like, this happens every 20 minutes in Gaza. Like, what are you?
It's rookie numbers. It's rookie numbers, because if Russia really wanted to win, because another thing they say that Russia's goal was to take over the entirety of Ukraine, was to level.
If they have to. I mean, if you keep coming to them with plans that one half of it's going to be occupied by France, the UK, and the Ukraine, Russia might say, I better take a little bit more. There better be a big buffer zone. So I think it's just supposed to show like we won't stop until our demands are met, and we'll go to Odessa and we'll keep going if we have to go. But there won't be French and UK troops in the middle of Kiev again. This is what we did after World War II. I was just discussing this morning with a colleague. Why would anybody enter into peace talks with the United States as the mediator and the sort of signator on the actual agreement? We have Minsk 1, Minsk 2, which were afterwards admitted by the signatories that they were just put in place to allow Ukraine to get ready for this war. We had the JCPOA that Trump literally ripped up to spite Obama during his first term, and now he's back to trying to put in place another JCPOA. Why would anybody enter into any sort of treaty or agreement with the United States when it literally we took 20 years to replace the Taliban with the Taliban? Like, we don't really do things that make any sense or that are in good faith. So why would they want to negotiate with Trump?
Yeah, and Putin has explained this many times before. People thought Putin was joking when he said that he prefers Biden and Trump because he don't trust Trump. He said before that he views Trump as extremely unpredictable. And Russia made a lot of miscalculations because Trump would say some shit like, hey, man, I think we should have peace with Russia. I think Democrats lost their mind. But he was the guy who allowed an AOK CIA cyber attacks on Russian infrastructure. That was Trump who allowed that's something that Obama did not want to do. Obama thought that CIA infrastructure attacks on Russia was too provocative. That is what Trump did. So on one end, Putin was like, man, we met at Helsinki. Nigga, I thought things were great. And then you turn around and you start following the direction of John Bolton, trying to get rid of my homie in Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro opposing me in Syria. So it was this unpredictability, and Trump is extremely unpredictable. I guess this quality may give him advantage over predictable neocons like Biden, which is why Trump preferred him. But Putin was burned. Not only by the West, but he's been burned by Trump before. And you guys think the Russians are dumb? They see the MAGA people in the media. They watch our media like hawks. They see everything that we're saying. They see how MAGA is selling the idea that they work in Russia. MAGA, you have Vivek Ramaswamy and these MAGA assholes. They will say stuff like, oh my God, Trump is playing a 4D chess on the world stage. He's driving Russia away from China. And then Xi Jinping and Putin like, what the fuck y'all talking about?
Yeah.
We see what you guys are saying. We are not going to allow you guys to manipulate us on the geopolitical world stage. We are going to stand up and we're going to fight for multipolarity. And seeing these actions that Trump has done, which only led to Russia and Iran, for example, becoming closer together, it's clear that Trump was a accelerist candidate. If you were cheering for multipolarity, it's funny because on RBN, I spoke to many people before who not into electoral politics, so they wasn't passionate about it. But they said, man, if I had to choose, I would choose Trump because Trump will help accelerate the end of multipolarity.
That's what I said.
That was fucking right, Sarah. That was right.
I said this in a space. They asked me, who do you want to win? And I said multiple times, I want Trump because I'm an accelerationist and I want multipolarity. And Kamala is going to be very status quo and very milquetoast and very kind of vanilla ice cream, no pun intended. And so I was like, I want Trump. We better shake things up. I did want to read this to you, get your reaction. This is from our Russian admin. She lives in Russia, in Siberia, and this is her reaction. So Russia's apparent willingness to entertain American mediation isn't a gesture of trust. It's a move of pure strategic elegance. Agreeing to listen and even agree serves a broader purpose: to appeal to Trump, fracture Western unity, and present Moscow as the only adult in the room. The result, Europe is sidelined, watching Washington entertain the very actor it spent years, not years, Lydia, a century, calling a pariah. NATO tension brews quietly while public cracks begin to show. The once cohesive front starts to look more like a loose collection of diverging interests. For Ukraine, this is unsettling. A Washington-Moscow channel that skips Kiev entirely makes the regime look irrelevant. Worse, it makes Russia look reasonable, measured, and open to peace, while Ukraine clings to maximalist positions that fewer and fewer are willing to entertain. Meanwhile, Moscow keeps up the pressure on the battlefield. Negotiations are no pause button. I think that's very well said, that actually we're being played.
Yeah. Yeah. I said before that literally after inauguration, because I didn't cover the election that much on RBN actually. Because I told you guys last year, and I know it was a great opportunity. It clicked, but like, bro, I don't give a fuck because the election is the least interesting thing that's about to happen over the next few years. With Putin, they was ready for Biden, they was ready for Trump. Xi Jinping was ready for Biden, they was ready for Trump, and they have been making strategic moves. And Trump have this delusional strategy that is literally born for the Reagan era, the peace through strength. You know the term they tricked MAGA people into repeating, thinking that it's an anti-war slogan, even though it's meant to.
It means the opposite.
I know I'm not tripping, sir. He knows that as well. I've seen a lot of MAGA accounts that are like, oh my God, Trump is bringing peace through strength again. Like, nigga, that's not a good thing. That's what got us into the Cold War.
We're getting trickle-down economics next.
But to your point, Trump's bombastic, and please share my screen when you get the chance. I have another video. This hotspot video is fresh. Like I literally just recorded this earlier today. And I want to get to this next topic. I think this is a good transition point. Because when I said that Xi Jinping, I have a hotspot video. I had tweets while I said that. I said Xi Jinping and China is going to run circles around Donald Trump and MAGA on the world stage. China is not the same state that it was in 2017. It's not the same state that it was during Trump trade war. Well, I would say, and I've seen people say that China was kind of naive. Like, as the United States and the West was very open about the fact that they're going to pivot hard against China, China was largely caught flat-footed on Trump's first term, especially during the tariff war, where they were still trying to negotiate with Trump. Do you guys remember that? Where China was, come on, Trump, come on, let's make a deal. They're not doing that bullshit no more. Not only did they learn from their mistake, they have became exponentially more powerful. You know, the country that they try and portray as having economic problems, China, the one that has a 5% GDP growth every year, that economy that's struggling, they have been preparing for this moment. Not only that, they've been building goodwill. Once again, the fact that the EU have ever been on the side of the United States against China is exactly why I root for Russia in the first place. What the fuck did China ever do to the EU?
Exactly. They've always had decent relations, especially with Central and Eastern Europe. China has always called out NATO aggression in Eastern Europe, color revolutions in Eastern Europe. This idea, the United States, I feel like they made the idea of China as a paper tiger like really stick in their head, because it's like they're like, China's too inept. We'll just destroy the EU's relationship with Russia and all of their commerce with Russia, and then they will be forced to come to us. And it's like, no, they're all turning to China. All of the auto companies are turning to China. Like it's very silly. I feel like I really liked that write-up that I read. I hadn't read it before. I just read it out loud because that's exactly what they're doing. They're using our own actions against us as a stage we don't even realize. And I say we, because I mean, obviously it's not Nick and I, but it's the Americans. We collectively look like idiots. We look like dumb children who our foreign policy changes every day. They lie about everything. And then Russia comes in, they're very poised and measured and calculated. And I mean, people forget that our political science programs, which I went through one, aren't really that great. They're not difficult. They're not critical thinking. They don't teach you how to engage in politics. And Russia has some of the best foreign policy colleges on the planet. So they teach each other how to engage in diplomacy correctly, how to engage in post-Soviet relations correctly. This is stuff that Pete Hegseth from Fox and Friends is not prepared to converse with. Like, this is, you know what I mean? It's kind of like our hubris. And this is, I don't remember what book I just read, what it actually was all about the fact. Oh, Multipolarity by Konstantin. It was a really great book. Let me show it to you guys. If you haven't read it yet, please read it. But it very much talks about, this is the new book by Konstantin van Hofmeister. I have to say it like that because it's very serious. But Multipolarity, really good, really short book, gives you an idea about how the downfall of the United States is mostly going to come from within. It's going to come from the hubris and the arrogance. And that's also a point that Martianov always stresses, and it's a point that Glenn Deason really stressed in his new book about Ukraine, which is awesome as well if you guys want to check that out. But yes, it's our hubris that really gets us. It's this idea that China is so weak that they could never compete with us economically, yet they're so strong that they've infiltrated all of our state institutions and all of our domestic policy. It's psychotic. It really is.
The delusion of these people whose strategy was to start this trade war and then force countries that was doing good business with China to decouple from China. And those countries was like, you are out of your goddamn mind. We would not do that. So this idea that people would just flock and choose America, it was a giant miscalculation. And I want to get to this topic because I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. If you guys don't mind again, I won't put when will this work? Can you play my share my screen one more time? I want to play my second hotspot video, and I'm gonna use this as a way to introduce this topic. And then Sarah, I want you to chime in because this is, and I was reading about this today where the EU and China came up with this deal where they're gonna lift sanctions off each other's lawmakers. It's great. I'll explain it a little bit here, and then Sarah, I'll get you in here for your reactions.
The EU is now strengthening their trade ties with China, even lifting sanctions in order to normalize relations in response to Donald Trump's dumb trade war. Donald Trump fucked up so badly that the EU is no longer pretending that the Uyghur genocide is a thing anymore. It is also very hard to sell the idea of an invisible genocide when we see dead Palestinian babies every single day. We know what a real genocide looks like. Remember, Donald Trump wanted the EU to decouple from China as conditions for lifting the sanctions. And the EU was like, nah, we're good. The only thing that Donald Trump has accomplished thus far is help accelerate the rise of multipolarity. Donald Trump's inability to force countries to decouple from China is exactly why he panicked and why he folded to China in such embarrassing fashion. In fact, Donald Trump's insane trade policies brought China closer to Japan and South Korea of all people. Imagine fucking up that badly. It's funny how just a week ago, that MAGA was pretending that Donald Trump was going to break China. Now they're scrambling, wondering why Xi didn't pick up the phone. In order to calm down investors, the Trump administration has been claiming that they are in active negotiations with China. Meanwhile, China quickly slapped down their claims, saying that there will be no negotiations and no talks until the United States removes all the new tariffs. I told you guys months ago, Xi Jinping in China will run circles around Donald Trump. This is a massive humiliation for the United States and for MAGA.
They won't admit it.
Feel free to chime in.
They will not admit it. They're not going to admit it. That there's just massive amounts of cope coming out of MAGA. It's so funny that you had the Gunther tweet in there because I did bookmark it too. Like, what are you talking about? Gunther Eagleman, who, first of all, that is not his name. And second of all, who runs 6 different accounts on Twitter, all botted to hell, all just eating up all of the ad revenue. And they post slop like this. Why are we listening to these people? Here's more slop, just because we already talked about it. Stu Peters thinks we're going to war in Western Europe. I'm not sure that he knows the difference between East and West. But what is this slop? And exactly like these.
Yeah, go to that one. Go back to that one. Look,
yeah,
guys, go back to the other one. Like, do you guys realize that X is mostly a mental asylum now?
Yes. Yes.
China will bend the knee by the end of the month. Bookmark this. Guys, this is the new media, Sarah.
We are the media. Like we are the media. Right. And it's sad. I was actually talking to Samira Khan the other day, who we all know and love. We were talking about how the mainstream media is now getting it right more often than the alternative media. It's really despicable. It's really despicable. I will not show any Zag. Hope somebody asked in the audience. No, we will not make fun of him on the stream. We'll make fun of him in spaces. But I did want to also, so we're talking about China. Then in typical, now I got to share my screen. Let's see if I can figure it out. But in typical United States fashion, yeah, here it is. They want to, instead of negotiating, they want to help China restructure their economy.
Oh, I saw this. Oh, Jesus Christ.
The U.S. wants to help China pivot away from an economic model focused on exports instead of consumption. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Wednesday, so yes, this was yesterday, China's current economic model is built on exporting its way out of economic troubles. It's an unsustainable model that is not only harming China, but the entire world. China needs to change. The country knows it needs to change. Everyone knows it needs to change, and we want to help it change because we need rebalancing too. What the hell?
Here it is. Sarah, I think, can you guys share my screen? I want to show the video because I actually seen this. I'm glad you because you did a great job presenting it, but it's something else when you hear him say it because like the smug like attitude that comes from nothing, guys. Like it's anyway. Let me play the video. I want you guys to hear how smug and ridiculous he found. Because I'm glad I wanted to cover this soon, so I'm glad he brought this up.
China, in particular, is in need of a rebalancing.
They are.
Recent data shows the Chinese economy tilting even further away from consumption toward manufacturing. China's economic system, with growth driven by manufacturing exports, will continue to create even more serious imbalances with its trading partners if the status quo is allowed to continue. China's current economic model is built on exporting its way out of its economic troubles. It's an unsustainable model that is not only harming China, but the entire world. China needs to change. The country knows it needs to change. Everyone knows it needs to change, and we want to help it change because we need rebalancing too. China can start by moving its economy away from export overcapacity and towards supporting its own consumers and domestic demand. Such a shift would help with global rebalancing that the world desperately needs.
Do you guys see why I wanted to show the video?
Yes, no, I'm glad you showed the video. What the hell are they saying? We just tanked the world, like the Western world's economy, and with tariffs, showed how volatile our market is because every time Trump sneezed, the market reflected that. While China just sat there like, what are y'all doing? So they need restructuring. They're unsustainable. Last I checked, we crashed in 2008, and the unsustainable economy of China bailed us out.
Last time I checked, and this is why it's hilarious. If you type in China economy in your Google, you will see nothing but a ton of articles of a lot of these smug Western economies. Like, this is why China's model is failing. China, it won't grow. They can't grow. Their economy in shambles. China in 2023, China's GDP growth was 5.1%. You know what the United States was? 2.8. We had China had damn near double United States GDP growth. Meanwhile, you have these assholes coping like, oh my God, China's system is so bad for the Chinese, even though 90% of millennials in China own their own homes, even though they have healthcare, even though they have modern infrastructure. Can you imagine being American capitalists who are seeing our cities fall apart? Our cities are shit, Sarah. Our cities are horrible to look at. And to think that you're gonna lecture to someone else, some other country, on how they should engage in trade and how they should do business, even though there are people who live in a higher quality of life than your people are, and simply because you want to catch up to China. And this is a pathetic, and please share my screen once again, because my theory, and I said this when the trade war began, and it's just a theory, I admit, but I have said that the rise of China in the Chinese century was so obvious that the neocon wing had a different strategy than the liberal wing. Because you guys know how the overall empire, who don't vary that much, they may have strategic differences, like the strategic difference they have in Ukraine. The liberals still want to go hard at China, but they're like, man, we can't do anything crazy yet. Meanwhile, the neocon right, and I think the liberal class disagree with them on the strategy. Their strategy was, hey, man, if you're going to have BRICS come up, if you're going to have all these other countries come up and choose China, fuck all of you guys. We will blow the whole fucking system up, and we will take you all with us. So they were giving this choice to countries, forcing them to decouple. And they was like, no, we're not going to do that. We have no reason to change this economy. We'll adjust to China. And Trump was panicking. Xi Jinping was resolute. His people was rallying behind Xi, while Americans were turning against Trump. You have people that were supporting Trump's campaign. You have all the big retailers blowing up Trump. It was going to end bad for your boy. So he backed away. And now he did some embarrassing ass shit where he was, after he talked all this shit, after Gunther was saying how we're going to crush China, after MAGA was bragging about how they're going to destroy China, Trump became pussy. You know, he was like, oh man, we're going to be nice to China. We have no reason. I actually think I have the clip of that. Let's see if I can show it. Actually, I do. Let me show the clip first. Let me go in proper order. Hold that thought.
Go ahead.
Let me play this video here.
And our country is getting stronger all the time because the other was not sustainable.
With China. Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID? Well, I'm not.
If you can't hear the question, they was asking if you're still going to play hardball with them. I know it was kind of hard to hear.
I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice. And we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States. So
bro, you was just talking shit.
Literally. They simultaneously talk out of both sides of their mouth. They just lie. It's just a constant cope and a constant lie. You're not projecting any power when you say we're getting stronger all the time. Do you know that China actually grew in the first quarter of 2025 while we were busy crashing our stock market? They grew. That's crazy. They grew by doing nothing. He lies and says that China's calling. Remember, he lied and said they called. Xi was in Cambodia and like Vietnam. You know, Vietnam is getting high-speed rail. China is busy literally going all over Southeastern Asia and saying, do you want to connect to our economy via high-speed rail? Vietnam is getting a high-speed rail before the United States. Please put that through your brain. Put it
Trump
through your
MAGA,
brain.
they canceled the high-speed rail project.
The guy that promised up the high-speed rail, took all the money for it, is now in the White House. His name's Elon Musk.
And that was the most desperate shit that they did when they were trying to pretend that they're in conversation, because once again, the market was tanking in the United States. You had Trump's homies. You had Elon Musk that was disagreeing with this. You had investors that was calling them up, cursing them out. That's probably behind the scene going off on them. So then Trump was like, oh, we're going to pretend to be nice. We're actually talking to China. And actually, you don't have to play it up because I already showed it. But I had up on the screen before how China denies any talks with the United States. Now, Trump is completely humiliated. This is a completely humiliated person because he's going now in order to save his economy because he panicked his investors. He wanted to pretend, oh, no, we're actually pretty good with China. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping like, who the fuck are you? We don't know you.
Yeah, we don't know you.
And you know how to put this up. I'll just read the headline. Where as Trump is pretending, actually, do you mind putting this? There it is. There he is. So as Trump is pretending that he's having this conversation with China, and after I read this, Sarah, you can feel free if you have a story you want to present. You can present a story after this, but this is the last thing I have on the China story. So as Trump is pretending and telling people that he's working with China behind the scenes, China was like, nigga, we ain't working with you. In fact, we don't want to hear from you. We don't want to talk to you until you remove all the new unilateral tariffs. If you don't move all the tariffs, we're not moving forward. This is G literally sunning and humiliating Trump in a way that I didn't know it would be this bad. Trump begging for a deal. Chinese social media, I need to get on the red note here soon, but Chinese social media has been lit because they've been laughing at this dumb orange buffoon. But go ahead, sir. I think you want to talk.
They've been laughing at all of us. I mean, keep in mind, we started at 150 countries are begging for a deal. Then we got down to 75. Now we've down to 30. Now we're at 15. 15 countries are going to meet with us for tariff deals. This has not worked. It's time to admit that this did not work. It actually caused so much damage for the multipolarists. I mean, we should be happy because it's not tanking the dollar, but it's putting a huge strain on it. It's showing that it's not stable. The volatility of the market is insane. That scares off Eastern investors. If Trump tweets, it's not supposed to affect the market the way that it has been. That's volatility in the market. Asians do not like that. And the funniest part is that the crash that didn't come from China. It came from Japan. Japan was dumping. They came from Japan. They see the writing on the wall. They got to get the hell out of this. Germany already got tanked. Japan, you're next. Don't get too big for your britches. So that all came from Japan. So it's very interesting to see our former allies, or, well, we'll just call them subordinates, forced into allyship of like Germany and Japan, kind of abandoning the ship. Like, we've got to get our own thing straight. And if you guys want to remember this moment, I made you this amazing shirt. It's on DDGeopolitics.com right now in our store. All products tariff-free, shipping is free, international, no taxes. But since we're talking about merch, I do want to talk about what we saw today or yesterday. I can't even remember. All the days are blurring together at this point. But it was this morning that we talked about. I talked about it with Aria, and he had to take his own screenshot because he couldn't even believe it was real. But here we go. What are we doing?
Oh, shit. They asked you about to do it. I didn't think they was going to do it, but they asked you about to do it, huh?
They really are about to do this.
God damn it. I guess the Trump derangement syndrome liberals was right on this, because I remember liberals say, if Trump wins the White House, he would never leave. He would run again. Like, oh, just shut the fuck up. I guess.
what are we doing? And not that I mind. I'm not objecting to extending presidential terms, because I think
term limits are bullshit. Like, we already seen the result. Term limit doesn't work if you have a rotten system. We're gonna do replace one asshole with another one, and I'm my position on this. I understand why people support it. Like, it's a good idea on paper, but if you have a rotten system full of rotten people with rotten politics, term limit's not changing shit. In our system, you can predict who's gonna win at a 98% rate based on who raises the most money.
Yep.
You have APAC. That is bragging that they going 40 for 40, nigga. They shooting like Jordan. They lights out on election. And you guys think your fucking term limits is going to stop the Zionist regime, the capitalists from corrupting? What's going to happen is Nancy Pelosi's going to retire, and some other motherfucking Nancy Pelosi asshole is going to replace her and become new Nancy Pelosi. That's what's going to happen. So I understand why people support term limits, but I think we should be focusing more on changing the culture, having overall good policies, elevating good leaders. Because honestly, if you have a good leader that we all support and they have a 12-year program, does it really make sense to even interrupt it? Isn't that why China more successful? Because Xi has long-term plans that you can see through. Once again, my mind been decolonized. I know you guys may not agree with me on this. My mind been decolonized. I've been questioning everything about the West, including fucking term limits, all this shit. But anyway, that's my thought. Go ahead, Sarah.
I wanted to pull up this shirt that Aria just sent me. If you guys can see it, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says rewrite the rules. So we're changing Trump 2028, rewrite the rules. So that's the plan. We're rewriting the rules.
I'm gonna sound like a fucking liberal boomer right now, but I have never seen a fucking administration so openly be against the Constitution.
I know. I was like, why?
I know that's a boomer ass shit. I know that's a boomer.
Maybe I kind of agree to an extent, because I said my argument was, they said, well, they were arguing with me about birthright citizenship. And I said, but that's in the Constitution. I'm not even a constitutionalist, but I'm not. We have to have some bedrock that we're built upon. And then they said, well, the founding fathers didn't predict, this was about slaves, the citizenship. So they didn't predict, obviously, that we were going to have an influx of immigrants or birth tourism or whatever they wanted to say. And I said, this can be applied to every single right. If you want to do this, they're going to use this against arms, the right to bear arms. They're going to say, well, the founding fathers didn't have AK-47s in mind. That's what the liberals are going to say when they're inevitably back in power. So it's like, why am I forced? So I was talking to MAGA and they said, but we're in a post-Constitution era. And I don't know if that's true. I guess to a degree it is. I guess, I don't know.
I think it's important to call this out, because I said many times before that weaponized hypocrisy is the highest form of corruption, because the people on the right, they will use the Constitution as a way to engage in class warfare. For example, there's just one of them where they will say that student loan debt forgiveness is unconstitutional. So that's where you want to draw the line, the Constitution. But when it comes to the Fourth Amendment, which the right wing have been gave up on, they've been gave up on the idea of due process, of having warrants. They've been against the Fourth Amendment. I've been arguing about this for years. They've been against the First Amendment. We can go down the list, but they are openly arguing against stuff that is written down. And my whole thing is like, bro, you can't apply one set of rules to the ruling class and apply a different to us. So I am critical. I think, well, the thing is, let me rephrase it. The Constitution has good ideas. I critique it because it's ran in a country full of hypocrisy, when the Constitution never really, ever really applied. But if you actually apply the Constitution, well, doesn't the Bill of Rights sound like a good idea? Our critique has always been the Constitution never actually applied to us. It's something that applied to the ruling class. Now, MAGA is openly saying that that's what they believe, where they're going to take certain things of the Constitution, which is meant to crush the working class, so they will speak out against any sort of economic innovation or economic policies, and saying that's unconstitutional. You can't do this because that's unconstitutional. Meanwhile, they can implement and build cop cities. They can build state power to fight against. Like, the whole thing you got, we can take people's rights away because the state labels you as a terrorist. Like, how is that constitutional? How is it constitutional for the government to label people as domestic terrorists and they lose their rights? That is what the right wing is advocating for, right? Was there anything else you want to add?
No, I agree, especially with I got into a big argument about the domestic terrorism thing, because that is a private interest that we are creating charges of domestic terrorism against Teslas for. So like that when you said domestic terrorism, that's the first thing that came to mind. I also wanted to get your opinion on how bad is it really? Because we're selling off our citizenships with Trump gold cards. They're $5 million each. I don't know where that money goes, but they get a gold card and an automatic citizenship. And then today,
isn't that open borders? Like, no. This is the argument, and I'm actually glad. I had a lot of productive conversations with libertarians who I'm actually surprised how much they agree with me on this. And I know this is like completely out of the lexicon, but I always made an argument. I understand why you will have border security. I'm advocating as a worker, as someone who believes in the freedom of movement, something that libertarians have argued for decades. If you're allowed to move to country, and the only barrier is money, borders don't exist. Why the fuck is Elon Musk in the United States?
For the rich. There you go.
Exactly. Sarah, I'm glad that you see where I'm coming with this. Because people are like, well, if you bring up to the right wing, like, isn't Elon Musk a fucking immigrant? I thought you guys hate immigrants. Well, he immigrated here legally.
Yeah, he paid money.
He paid a lot of money. He had company. He making money. So the only border is a border between whether you have money to move or whether you don't, whether you're a worker or whether you're a capitalist. That's why I'm saying it's not in our interest to advocate for giant police states. If you want to prevent mass migration, which I understand why that's an issue for the working class, you have to do it systemically, like ending the sanctions, having actual fair trade agreements, and not bankrupting your neighbors using the IMF. If you didn't engage in regime change operations in South America, you wouldn't be having all these mass migration. These are things that you got to change. So that's why I'm not generally sympathetic for the people who was advocates of sanctions, which led to mass migration, imperialism. Then they complain why their neighbors are coming over here. If you was a good neighbor, there wouldn't be mass migration. It's not an issue that can change overnight. It's something that will change through good policy. It is my position, because of the capitalist hypocrisy, that we shouldn't allow them to be the only people to have that freedom of movement. That's just my thoughts. Anyway, sir, that's another tangent.
It's all built on that. It's all built on crony capitalism, which is, I mean, even Mussolini said fascism should really be called corporatism, because it's just the merger of the corporate and the state. And that's literally what this is. I don't know if it was on your show or on my show, where I discussed the merging of Eric Prince with our ICE and private prison systems and all of that. We're just merging private and state. And let's be honest, 5 million is a lot to us, and it would obviously change all of our lives. But to these people, 5 million is nothing. That's a garage. Like, that is nothing for these people. So for 5 million to get an American citizenship, drug dealers can raise $5 million. Like, they complain that we're going to get like, they're not sending their best. Who's going to buy an American citizenship for 5 million? You think good people? Not good people. Like people like Andrew Tate. That's what you're going to get. People, crypto lords like Andrew Tate. That's what you're going to get. And then, reason why I bring up all this money stuff is then we get this. I saw today, and now I got to share my screen. But I saw today on Twitter, Laura Loomer, who I have to follow. But this is the only reason why I'm bringing her up. Tonight, President Trump is having a fundraiser at his Trump National Golf Club in Lowe's Island, Virginia, where a $1 million per plate dinner is planned for MAGA Inc. Super PAC. And then she posted that's his itinerary. This is bananas. Can you imagine if Putin or
exactly
$1 million a plate at a time like this?
That's such a great point. Can you they say that crony capitalists run Russia, and this is what happened. This is the result of giving one political party way too much clout, giving them way too much because Trump won the popular vote. He was the first Republican that run the popular vote
since Reagan.
Yeah, I think I want to say I'm not a fucking electoral fucking historian, but it's been a long fucking time. Can you share my screen, please?
I can't remember.
Yeah, can you share my screen here, please? This is what happened when you give too much political capital. That's the word I was thinking about earlier. I couldn't think. The American people unfortunately gave Trump way too much fucking political capital with that dominant victory. As a third party advocate, what happens in the election is not my fucking concern. But Trump won a giant fucking mandate. That's the reality. And the American people saw Trump's corruption. He's like, nigga, you guys approve? You approve. All right, bet. So now we have a situation. Imagine if this was China. Imagine if this was Iran. Imagine this was whatever you believe is the authoritarian, tyrannical hellhole that they sold us as our enemies, like China, North Korea, and them. You have a president which is worth $4.1 billion, meeting with someone who was literally married to a sex pest, a mass serial rapist, Vince McMahon. But Linda McMahon didn't know what was going on. That's what she wanted us to believe. I have friends who are in wrestling, so they told me the whole thing. Vince McMahon usually trapped these women in contracts and engaged in all these degrading sexual acts with them. There is no way you was married to this motherfucker. Actually, I don't know the story as well as I thought it did, but I have friends that were like, look at what Vince McMahon did. It's literally crazy. Like the rapes he was pulling off. And Linda McMahon was married to this motherfucker for decades. I don't know if they're still married. And she was like, I had no idea. Get the fuck out of here. You knew exactly what was going on. The same way that Trump knew exactly what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein. They all fucking sex packs. Linda McMahon is too. But I get too far off my point. But Linda McMahon is worth $3.2 billion. Trump is worth $4.1 billion. And now they are planning to confiscate wages from poor and working class people because they demanded the Department of Education to start taking student loans back from the working class, even though many Americans can't afford them. Even they're going to garnish their wages, take money directly out of their bank accounts. Like there's not going to be any of this forbearance shit that we've seen before. It's going to be, they're going to take the shit directly out of your bank. So think about just the optics of this. We have billionaire fucks who giving each other jobs and they're directly robbing the working class to give money to loan sharks, usury, which is supposed to be one of the deadly sins. But this is the reality. And I'm gonna show you. I have a few more things I'm gonna quickly share, and I'll pass right back to you, Sarah. Since we quickly covered some domestic stuff here, this is why I find it absurd that I understand why rich people vote. That shit makes 100% sense to me.
Yeah.
Whenever I see celebrities and people be, well, I can't believe this celebrity endorsed a Democrat. Nigga, that makes hella sense. They millionaires. Like, whenever I see Jay-Z endorse Hillary Clinton, that shit makes 100% sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is ordinary people doing that shit. So this is why, because no matter if it's a Republican or Democrat, you have under Biden, the last administration, it happened under Trump, happened under Obama as well, where he crashed the market in 2008 in order to facilitate an upward transfer of wealth. That is what Donald Trump just did. So of course the stock markets fell. They said that's supposedly supposed to hurt the top 1%, right? But who buys the collapsed stocks? Who benefits from the rebound? The top 1%. Yep. That's what they did in 2008, and they are already doing it now. Trump is already bragging about how he got his friends rich. And who else benefits whenever there's a massive market sell-off? Banks. Because they get paid by transactions. Guys, do you understand? I'm not trying to get crazy, radical, socialist on you guys, but do you guys understand why this shit is meant to crash? Like, whenever there are these predicted crashes every 5 to 8 years, I'm not surprised. Let me read the headline. Sorry, I'll keep talking too much.
Yeah.
Let me read the headline. I passed you, Sarah. Here's the headline. 1 trillion of wealth, 1 trillion was created. Who created that? No workers? So the wealth spawned out of the air, Sarah. Apparently, these trillionaires, these billionaires, they rubbed the genie on the lamp and they granted wealth that came out of nowhere. There was no labor involved, apparently. This is what capital have you believe. It was created out of nowhere for the top 19 richest U.S. households last year. Now, you guys see why I'm going gray. Y'all know if you guys see, I got gray in my beard now. I'm going crazy because
people forget that Elon was a liberal before he jumped on the Trump train. Do people forget that's why he was liberal, because of these EV vehicles? Like, I don't know why MAGA allowed themselves to get baited and switched, because in 2018, as I recall, or 2021 and 2014, as I recall, EVs were for gays and like shit libs, right? That's what I was told. And now all of a sudden, everybody's got a Tesla. Everybody's giving, by the way, they're down 71% in sales, which good riddance to bad rubbish is all I have to say. But then they forget that we started off this presidency with a rug pull from the president and his wife, in which they both made multiple billions of dollars. Billions. Like, did anybody see that this was coming? And it's funny, one of the listeners said Gilded Age. They're calling it that. The crypto bros and the people that are better off are calling it a golden age, because it's not affecting them. It's affecting us.
That's crazy.
American EVs do suck anyway. The Chinese EVs. I was in a Chinese EV in Russia, which one of the drivers picked me up in. And dude, it was like a Bentley inside.
Dude, like fucking, I'm not even big on Teslas. I think Teslas are ass. I used to sell cars, guys. So I sold Lexuses and I sold Toyotas. And Lexuses, they had great electric vehicles. So whenever I saw Teslas, I'm like, nigga, this is no better than the fucking electric. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm biased because those are the companies I sold cars for. But I used to see people trading Teslas all the time. Why should you work for Lexus?
Well, there's a reason why he's giving them away like water. Like, he's just giving them away. Like, it's crazy. He's like, everybody gets a Tesla because they're such great cars. No, everybody's getting a Tesla. He gave a Tesla to Rob Schneider, for God's sakes. Rob Schneider, like the comedian from the 90s. Yeah. That's like their new spokes guy. This is how bad things are. If you only knew how bad things really are, and everything's just smoke and mirrors and a facade. They're having car infomercials on the White House lawn not because Tesla's cool, but because Tesla's losing money at an alarming rate.
Dude, did Elon Musk fumble the bag like we never seen before? Because before, Elon Musk was the greatest, obviously the greatest capitalist of all time. Yep. It is shown because he's the richest human of all time. The thing about what you just said before, Sarah, he was pretending to be a liberal. It is clear that he was like, you don't just become this super cultural warrior, right-wing, anti-liberal person out of fucking nowhere. He was just a liberal in like 2017. So he had a great business plan. Like, he had his plan where he don't pretend to be woke. I saw this old tweet. I won't be able to find it. I'm sorry. I need to find it one day. It was this tweet where Elon Musk, a much younger, like it may be like 10 years ago, he had a picture with this black girl. He said, diversity is our strength at Tesla. And I couldn't believe it. It was like a month ago I saw someone resurface. Like, he was like, diversity is our strength. This is why we are focusing on hiring black female engineers. He was a completely different guy. You know why? Because he was the greatest capitalist of all time. He was selling electric vehicles. He's like, bro, I'm about to hustle these Nancy Pelosi fucking liberals. Yo, I see how they are in the San Francisco. He was super pro-gay. Nigga, he's like, bro, I'm about to slay among these gay white liberals. And he did, dude. His undeniable, his business plan was amazing. He sold himself as like this fucking Tony Stark motherfucker. He created this, he pretended he's like a genius, right? But he's clearly a dumbass. Like, when you hear him talk about anything else that's not business, he's clearly a dumbass, but he marketed himself as a genius. So a lot of liberals fell in love with them. So he created a cult of personality. The point I'm making is he was killing the game. And then he decided to switch to MAGA. And he fumbled the likes we never seen before. Yeah. Because his wealth was soaring under Biden. Mm-hmm. And now that he went full MAGA, he underestimated that his business was being upholded by Trump derangement syndrome liberals. And that's why you're seeing Tesla markets crash. And people realize now he's pretty fucking washed. He is washed. Like, anyway, Sarah.
Maybe he gave Trump $100 million. $100 $100 million. He was I think he was the largest funder after Miriam Adelson of the Trump campaign. Just psychotic. I mean, I do think he might have fumbled the bag. I think he thought he was going to have a lot more influence than he did, but I don't know that people say Elon's the richest man in the world, but he doesn't have a lot of liquidity. So it's not like he can hand over millions and billions to Trump. He gave Trump what he could at the time. He was beat out by other funders. And I mean, Trump's in with a lot of old money too. You have the Adelsons and you just showed McMahon. They're loaded. These people are loaded, like the likes of which Elon couldn't understand. So Elon's a little bit frozen out of the administration. Not to mention, Doge went from promising us $1 trillion in cuts down to 500 billion. And I think now we're down to 150 billion that won't even be shown to us. The whole thing is a farce. It's all a farce.
Yeah, I heard a report. I got to double check it because I didn't fact. I just read on Twitter. I always fact check everything. Like if I ever talk about on the show, because as we mentioned before, Twitter is full of fake fucking. It's crazy how just faker and gayer it become. Like there's so many of these fake MAGA accounts, and there's a lot of liberal accounts. It's just literally bullshit. Like whenever I share something on Twitter, I always make sure I check another source. But I did read before how like this whole thing with Elon Musk and Tesla is like devastating for the stocks of Tesla. Have been devastating for their overall brand long term. Like long term. Like even if Elon Musk would have flipped a switch, he created an entire era of people who would never buy out. Like for me, like he got people buying for different reasons. There's no way I would ever support him because he's a fucking Zionist. But now you got liberals who won't support him because he's a fucking Trump head. And then you got a lot of fucking people who live in the Midwest and the South who would never fucking buy an electric vehicle because they think it's gay for some reason. Like I will never, guys. I sold cars, guys.
Tesla to Ted Cruz. Like he's from Texas, the oil state. Like what are we doing here? Like Wendy did ask though, Sarah, MAGA didn't vote for Elon, only Trump. 100% agree. 100% agree. And that's what I think, that Elon was under the wrong impression. Andrew Tate is USA, UK citizenship. Yeah, I know. I was just using him as an example of who would buy, what type of person was going to buy citizenship. Is
Andrew
it wrong?
Sorry, Sarah, but Andrew Tate is one of those fucking hardline immigration people. You guys see what I'm talking about? And I would love to debate, like he got USA and UK citizenship, so you're not for staying at one land.
Yeah,
you just pick your favorites. But then he go around like, oh my god, can't believe all these brown people are going to Europe, even though he's half brown. But that's his grip. Like, sorry, Sarah, to interrupt you, but
you're fine.
Like, it's so annoying that these right wingers pretend they hardline immigration. Meanwhile, they going to Sweden. Motherfucker, they vacation
Dubai right now. He's like living in Dubai.
Anyway, it's
with a house in Romania. Amongst the gypsies. But anyway, she says, is it wrong? I still would vote for Trump today. I abhor Democrats. No, I don't think that you're wrong for voting how you would vote, how you want to vote. I didn't vote. I boycotted the election and went to Russia instead. If I was forced gun to my head, I probably would have voted for Trump, if not Jill Stein. But I also abhor Democrats more than I abhor Republicans, because the Republicans give great content. The content is so much better under a MAGA regime than it was under Biden. Biden was so boring. At least Trump's entertaining. Plus, like we said in the beginning, the accelerationist facet, which is that we're multipolarists and we want multipolarity, and Trump is much better for multipolarity because he's inept. So
Wandi, the only thing I would say is that if you really abhor Democrats, the thing that would piss them off the most is supporting a third party. It was Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer that said they want a strong Republican Party.
Yeah, they love it.
I don't think they're offended. Like, if you want to get Democrats, you vote for Republican. They got their daddies and their uncle vote Republican. Like, a lot of these Democrats, they are liberal because they had daddy issues. Their daddy was a Republican, so now they vote Democrat. So the best thing you can do to get at these people, not to play their game, not to vote for Republican, vote for the people that they try to sue off the ballot. So the Democratic Party sued to get the Green Party off the ballot. You guys think they use that resource for no reason? They don't want to see another alternative outside of the duopoly. They're happy to lose to Republicans. They don't ever want the narrative to go too far away. I don't want to tell you how to vote. I'm just saying, if you abhor the Democrats, that's the best thing you can do, is to not even play their game, to prop up the people they want off the ballot. But we can continue to.
We're going to wrap, but I want to close with your thoughts on this, because this has been going on, and I've been telling Blue Anon that they're not going to do this to me again. But Andy says, Newsweek from yesterday. AOC sees popularity with New York Republicans surge from 6% to 21%. Why are you doing this to us with AOC and Bernie again?
Dude, they actually about to do it. They actually about to do it. I'm gonna see if I can find it. I know we about to wrap up. This be just real quick. AOC is definitely running. Let me see. Someone sent me this.
You think she's gonna run?
Oh, she 100% run. Let me. I'm gonna share my screen here. Give me 1 second here. It's not gonna be too long. On that point, AOC has been raking it in. Please share the screen when you get a chance here. I am actually pretty shocked to see how fast and how unapologetic the liberals have shifted towards AOC, because after losing to Trump twice, now they're like, oh fuck, AOC, we probably gotta give her a chance. She has said she's a team player now for the Democratic Party, and now she's putting out these cringe ads. Like, we're not gonna watch it. I'll just read it, and they clearly stand up for AOC 2028. Do not let them trick you into thinking we're enemies. Do not let them trick you into thinking that we can be separated to rural and urban, black and white and Latino. We are one.
You did that.
Fucking one.
You did that. The liberals are the ones who divided everybody and made everybody identify or put everybody into slots by how they looked or what their sexual preference was. It was them that did it.
Yep. And they had no problems with the extreme anti-Palestinian racism in the Democratic Party. Isn't that crazy?
None.
The insane anti-Asian racism. Like, the anti-China derangement in the Democratic Party has gotten worse.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if maybe I'm paying attention more. That could be possible, but I swear to God, it's got worse over the last few years, because they used to like pedal with it a little bit, but usually they used to rely on the Republicans to push it the most. But now I'm seeing like liberals being super hardcore anti-China like I've never seen before. So how can you put out that statement when you have a party that's extremely anti-Russian? When I had Rokana on, that was a few months ago, I was explaining to him, like, I would never support the party because you guys hate Russians. You hate fucking Chinese people. You guys hate Palestinians. So to them, it's super important to support war criminals, to support capitalists and people who hate our guts, because we have to support the LGBTQ community. We got to support gay people, as they support a party that is extremely racist against Palestinians, that is building cop cities, that is meant to subjugate black and poor working class people. Like, it's like, I don't understand where their hierarchy comes from, because there's like a certain hierarchy of people who's important to them. The most important people in the world, the people that you can never ever sell out, and I obviously I support this as well, the trans community and the LGBTQ community. But if you support people who hate Russians, hate Chinese people, they hate Palestinians, then they're all good. It's just very annoying. But go ahead, Sarah.
I think we're a wrap, but I want to get any closing thoughts from you.
It was a banger show, man. That was good, because Sarah's shows are very therapeutic, as I always say.
Well, I decided to do this every 2 weeks because I don't get to talk. I don't talk much about domestic politics or culture war stuff that is intertwined with politics. And I thought that you are like the best person that does that, and that like kind of aligns with my views, because. Nice. And I thought, what better than to prove I'm not racist than to do it with a black guy.
Yeah, we definitely got to keep this going. This is a very base, hilarious. I love these. I love
thanks
you guys.
for popping up in the chat, Rome. And
Rome. We have a big event. I saw Rome mention it before, and maybe he would plug on the show. But we have a big event we're playing with the chairman this July, Fred Hampton Jr. We're supposed to be going to Chicago. We're doing a big giveaway event in Chicago. It's going to be gigantic. So anyway, I just want to promote that. Big shout out to Rome. I love that brother. We'll go ahead, Sarah.
And we'll help you out with that, guys. Let us know how we can help. Love you too, FaZe, Will. And this one for you, Nick. Nick, check out Gary Stevenson, Gary's Economics. I hate economics. I
think economics is barely a real fucking thing. The academic study of academics in the West is bullshit. Yeah, you gotta realize they are trained in capitalist propaganda. They say stuff that inherently makes no sense. They will say stuff like, "Oh, well, if we spend money on social programs for poor and rich people, poor and working class people, that will lead to inflation." No, inflation many of the times comes when the ruling class, when the capitalist wants to increase their profit, because profit comes from what? Well, you charge the consumers, what you take from your labor, and what you get from production. And we gotta have never-ending profits. You have to adjust what you pay your workers, how much you spend on labor production, or how much you sell your consumers. So if your goal is to have never-ending profits, which is the goal of the capitalists, they get in trouble by their stockholders if they don't increase their profits every quarter. So what happens when a capitalist have to increase their profit every quarter? You will have a natural rise of inflation. There are already stories. Sorry, sir. Last point.
Oh, you're fine.
There are already stories about how businesses, including the small business that people idolize for some reason, they're already taking advantage of Trump tariffs and raising their prices before the tariffs even take into place. The business owner, the capitalist class, always look for reason to raise prices. They did the same in COVID. When COVID happened, the people who make this shit right here, soap and hand
God, hand sanitizer. Yep.
Yeah. So that anyway, I'm sorry we're going on a tangent, but the whole point is economists will never even explain that. No. And I know they're just listening to many of like, I got a PhD in economics. They have no idea what the fuck is going on in the world. But anyway, sorry, Sarah. Fun show. Always very.
Oh, somebody said AOC, President Newsom. Oh, please stop, President Newsom. He would get elected. He would get elected. Liberal women and liberal men love a good-looking guy. He would probably do pretty well. I tell
you guys, my sleeper pick is Pete Buttigieg, man. I can see AOC endorsing Pete Buttigieg. Like he went on this big Fox News circuit afterwards, and he'd been on a lot of the Daily Show. I see him on the Daily Show. He was on what's the other shit lib? I fucking forget his name. I'm not good with celebrities. You guys know that. One of the other, like he's being pushed hard right now, and his approvals among Democrats are apparently sky high. And I can easily see Pete pretending do that fake progressive bullshit again. That's my dark horse. It's gonna be Pete versus JD Vance 2028. Oh. That's electoral politics for you guys. I hope you guys looking forward to JD Vance versus Pete Buttigieg.
Follow. If you are not following RBN and you are in my audience, you're already wrong. Please go to ddgeopolitics.com. We will be back every 2 Thursdays. So not next Thursday, but the Thursday after. Maybe we'll bump that up to every week. We'll see how it goes. Nick, what have you got going? Nick, what have you got going on? Let the people know when you're streaming again.
The biggest I want to promote once again, Rome. Like we've had this great relationship with the chairman. It's been pretty well documented what happened. A lot of people try to separate RBN and Fred Hampton Jr. and they was unsuccessful. We had this big event. We're planning maybe June, July in Chicago. Rome has all the details, but I think we're giving away diapers. We're doing a food drive. We're going to be donating to the Hampton House. There's lots going on in Chicago. And we're just ramping up RBN mutual aid more than anything else. We always said that YouTube, we're activists who just so happen to have a YouTube channel. So that's been my main focus over the last few days is trying to rebuild RBN mutual aid. I'll be back next week as well with some more streams. I always enjoy the streams with us, Sarah. So I'm looking forward to this as well.
Yeah, keep us posted so we could share it on our accounts as well. Rome, you're always doing incredible things in the community, and let us know how we can support you. Oh, and I'll be back with Marat on Sunday for our weekly Sunday wrap-up stream. Thank you so much, Nick. This was fun. We'll do this. But I don't need a therapist anymore. I can cancel my plan.
Yeah, definitely very therapeutic.